Well, hello, future CRNA. Welcome back to another episode of CRNA School Prep Academy. I'm your host, Jenny Fennell, CRNA, and today we're going to discuss, how much money does a CRNA actually make? So, based on a 2020 report of about 2,800 CRNAs, so we probably have about 50,000 CRNAs in the entire United States. It's not even 10%, but still it kind of gives you a good idea of a ballpark figure. Is the median salary is around $200,000. Now, this was actually unchanged from the 2019 survey, which is kind of shocking. I would put my money on the fact that I bet you the 2021 report, when it comes out later this year, that we will see a substantial increase in 2021. But again, the median salary, $200,000. And so that's approximately $100 an hour if you break it down to an hourly rate. But I will say this is going to vary from facility to facility. States that have a much higher cost of living, of course, they're going to be paid much higher per hour. States that have a lower cost of living are going to be paid much less. But there are occasional unique places that you can even live in a place where you have, say, a really affordable cost of living and you can still make a decent amount of money. You just have to kind of seek those facilities out, seek those positions out. And, the best way to do that, if you're looking for jobs right now as an SRNA, is to network within the community. That is by far the best way to find positions. Now, it's funny because I actually have had locum companies come up to me and kind of ask, kind of want to work with me and kind of help them recruit, right? And they asked me, they're like, well, in your opinion as a CRNA, how do you find jobs? And I was honest and said, well, I just talk to people. I don't go to companies. Yes, I've used things like GasWorks and things like that to look, but you can find so little about a position online that it's just kind of a waste of time if you ask me. It's more about calling up a CRNA and calling up a CRNA, another CRNA, another CRNA, another CRNA, and talking. And that's how, in my opinion, you really find the best jobs. Not to mention, you really want to talk to a current staff member, multiple staff members, multiple CRNAs prior to actually considering a job, because you really want to ask the hard questions, such as what's the most senior CRNA you have on staff, essentially kind of find out what their turn rate is, right? How often are people leaving? How satisfied are you with the environment? What is it like working there? Are you treated well? Are you respected? Does the OR staff treat you well? Do the attendings treat you well? What's your scope of practice like? Can you essentially, if you want to do something like hearts, for example, do you have any opportunities to do that? Or is it like impossible? Is it really, so just talking to people to try to gauge what it's really like working there is always the best way to actually find a job. But yeah, and I also want to get into, I told you $200,000 is the median salary for CRNAs, but there's also a wide range. The lowest I've ever heard of is right around $150,000, and that's usually for like a new grad. And again, this is from, in the heart of it all in Ohio. So I think that's, Ohio is a really relatively cheap place to live, which I'm very thankful for. And we're supposed to be really boring too, but I enjoy boring. Like, I like not having, hurricanes and earthquakes. Like, I'm cool right here. Give me some corn on the cob and I'm all set. But that being said, again, it's going to vary. That position that I know was paying that low is now paying much higher. Just in the last probably year and a half, they've given a substantial raise up to like 170. So it's changed quite a bit. That's why I said I bet you the report that comes out here next for 2021 is going to be substantially higher, because every place is short-staffed right now. Places are just losing people. People are retiring. People are leaving people are retiring. We've known this for a long time, that the majority, even in CRNAs, I know nurses are like this too, but a good chunk of our working population are really on the verge of retiring. So yes, we're going to have shortages. And of course, the last few years hasn't helped anything. People who were maybe going to wait 5 years to retire were like, peace out, I'm done. Like, I don't want to deal with this, so I don't really blame them. If you could retire and you're only a few years away, why don't you just do it now? So I think the burnout people are experiencing too is like, well, I'll just retire now instead. So that's happening with CRNAs as well. We're not immune to that, as far as the a good chunk of our population is retiring. So it's a really good time to become a CRNA. And it's funny because I get asked this question a lot as far as, oh, it's oversaturated. I don't know where this information is coming from. Like, I would check the cred on that, because I don't think they have any street cred. I don't know who would ever say that CRNA is a saturated market, because it's completely not. Like, it makes me laugh, because it's never been. I've been a CRNA for 8 years, and it has never been saturated. I have never had issues finding a job. In fact, the last time I job hunted, guess when I did it? April of 2020. Do you know what happened in April of 2020 in the OR world? We shut down. They weren't even operating. And I was like, I'm going to go find a job. Yeah, that's what I did. And I had 4 job offers during the pandemic when the operating room was shut down. So that being said, kudos to being a CRNA. Like, you have good job security. You will never have to worry about finding a job as a CRNA. In fact, you have negotiating power, because people will want you. You are a very highly skilled provider. And so that being said, I also, have experienced W-2 positions, PRN positions, which is still W-2, but you just don't get the benefits like the retirement and the medical benefits. And I'm also getting ready to go into the 1099 world. It fell in my lap. I wasn't even looking for it, because again, when you have good connections within the community, you tend to have more opportunities, right? So I get involved in your state association, your national association. Not only is it vital for your profession, and you should be doing it, but it's a really great way to open the doors for more possibilities career-wise. So again, I wasn't looking for this. It's kind of a unicorn job. I mean, it's a locum position that is going to allow me to be a PRN. Like, it's kind of very unusual to find a CRNA locum position that's literally going to let you and treat you like an actual PRN employee. So, because again, I can set my hours, I can work nothing an entire month, or I can work 4 shifts in a month, or 5 shifts in a month, or 2 shifts in a month, or again, like, I can set my own schedule. I'm not held to a certain amount of hours, and I'm paid a locum rate. And just to kind of put ballpark idea in your mind as far as what a CRNA locum rate is, the going rate is right now, we're looking at right around between $180 to $200 an hour. So $180 to $200 an hour, which $180 an hour is approximately $345,000 a year, and $200 an hour is $400,000 a year if you were to work full time at that pay rate. Now, obviously, I'm not planning on working full time. But you could, and they have the availability if I wanted it. I just don't, because I'm at a point in my life, you guys, where my time is worth its weight in gold. So good luck trying to get me to work a bunch of hours right now when I care the most about my time. And again, that's just a phase of my life. We have 3 little kids, 6 and under, and I run CRNA School Prep Academy. So I love being a CRNA. You guys know that I'm really passionate about it. I would never be able to give up my bedside, because I love being a CRNA. I love doing it. I actually consider it my fun days. Like, my OR time is my easy time. But ultimately, I also love my business too, and I love my students, and I love mentoring. So I have to find kind of like a fine balance. And being PRN for me is really the best of both worlds, where I can still get to go practice my skills and provide anesthesia, which I love to do, and also mentor future generations of CRNAs. But, if I didn't have CRNA School Prep Academy, I would be full-time. I would work probably 36 hours to 32 hours a week. Or now that I have my student loans paid off, which they are paid off, they just got paid off. I would even consider dropping to part-time and then picking up a locum position, meaning I would probably, like where I currently work, I can be part-time at 16 hours a week. How sweet is that? Yes, 16 hours a week, and I could get benefits. So on the horizon, I may actually, if I ever could or if I ever can, I would consider working part-time there at 16 hours a week and then picking up a locum shift once a week, because again, the pay rate is so much higher and it gives me a variety in my experience. Where I currently work is a pediatric hospital. We also do burns. This locum position is an adult hospital, but they do all their own regional, which is exciting because I did get trained very well on how to do regional blocks. But I currently don't get to do them where I currently work. So I'm going to get experience doing that again. They also have a heart team, which I wasn't anticipating doing hearts. I still don't know if I'm going to, but based when they saw my resume, they were like, oh no, we'll use you. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, just 1 or 2 days a week. Use me for like your heart or your lung cases. Okay. But I do have a background in open heart. So again, they were just excited to see that on my resume. I don't know, to be continued to see how that unfolds. I wasn't anticipating going in as a locum to do any kind of hearts, but I do love doing hearts. So we'll see. I don't know. So it's very unique. And again, I would never have found this position if it wasn't for the network that I am in, meaning I'm very active in the state association. I go to meetings, and I essentially was presented this opportunity from a CRNA. And so again, always best way to find a job. So if you're ever wondering if you're in school, like how am I supposed to find a position after school? You have to network. You have to talk to CRNAs. Someone will know someone. Like this community is really small. I promise you there is a CRNA that you go to clinical with at some facility that will know someone at a facility in a different state far, far away. Like I know CRNAs in Hawaii, CRNAs in Alaska, CRNAs in California, New York. I mean, you name it. I know a CRNA pretty much in almost every state of the country. Just myself, my lonely little self here. But I guarantee if you were to ask all my coworkers, they would have an even bigger network. So networking is really, really crucial in this community because we are small and we do look after our own. I think CRNAs are very, very good at that as far as we do watch out for one another and we do help each other find jobs, good jobs. So let's talk about other things as far as pay. I kind of just went over I would say as a new grad, you can probably anticipate making at least, I would say $85 to $85 an hour, maybe even higher than that. Like I know, even like in the state that I live in, I know a CRNA who, when he graduated, was making $200 or $100. He was making $100 an hour as a new grad. Like that's extremely high for our area. But that just goes to show it does exist. I'm telling you the average to anticipate is right around $86 to $90 an hour. It doesn't mean that the $100 an hour jobs are not out there. They are, but you just have to look for them. And this position was at an all CRNA practice. It was rural. So that also changes things. If you take a job in an inner city, you're probably not going to have the most competitive pay because they have more applicants come in for the position, right? But if you're okay with living in a rural area and working at a hospital that has less applicants and less to pick from, they're probably more likely to have to pay higher to get staff. So that's just something to consider. And then also like the type of practice, because you guys, money's great and all, but if you hate your job or you don't like where you work, I promise you, you won't care how much money you make. I'm raising my hand on that one. You're not going to like every place you work. And, I guess I experienced this where I was really unhappy and I was kind of shocked that I was unhappy. I didn't anticipate this happening, but I wasn't happy. And maybe this wasn't for me, right? And it doesn't mean that it was a bad place and no one should work there, blah, 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 blah. It just wasn't for me. And it wasn't my cup of tea. There's a lot of things I had issues with. And so off I go, right? And, no harm, no foul. But, for me, like I like building long-term relationships. I like, if you hire me, I want to be there for a while. Like I'm not, I don't want to jump around because first, A, that's stressful. And B, that's not really a resume I want to carry where I'm looking like I'm hopping jobs all the time. Right. So I do try to pick jobs with the intention of staying, but sometimes you pick wrong. Right. And you're just not going to be happy. It doesn't matter how much money you make. If you don't like the work environment, you're not going to be happy. Even if you like providing anesthesia, if the work environment is just not good, then it's not good. Good environments do exist though, because I love where I work now. I love it. It's a great environment. And yes, there are negatives. Trust me, there are negatives. But what I'm looking for as far as friendliness, ease of working, team, communication, flexibility, getting out on time, I have it all. Like I have it all. And friendliness of not just the CRNAs, but just the staff in general. Yeah, I have that and I'm happy. So that being said, there are, as far as like, I don't do regional blocks anymore. Okay, well, I sacrifice that. Maybe the autonomy is not as much as I used to have. Okay, so I sacrifice that. But everything else is great, so, and I get a good experience, good variety of cases. So what I'm trying to, I guess, essentially trying to explain is there's going to be positives and negatives to every position. You really have to decide what's important to you. And I think it comes down to, is it 5 factors? Let me see. I don't remember how many. So it'll be, pay, obviously, Location, meaning how far is your commute? I know coworkers who drive an hour to work where I work because they just don't have the options where they are, or the options they do have are not what they want. So location could be a deciding factor as far as where you take a job. Type of scope of practice, meaning type of practice. Whether do you do hearts? Do you want to do OB? Do you want to do peds? Do you want to do regional blocks? Do you want to do an all CRNA practice? Do you want a supervision model? Do you want an ACT model? As you can see, scope of practice, type of practice, that can change, as far as what type of job you take. Next thing you got to consider is essentially, benefits and retirement package, because those can differ quite a bit. Some places are really great at retirement, might not pay you as much, but then you have to ask yourself, what does this break down to if you consider how much they're giving me in my retirement, right? Or I'm only paying $200 for my medical, or $300 for my medical for my family. Like, that's a huge, because I pay out of pocket for private medical, and holy smokes, you guys, it is so expensive, and it's not great, like great insurance. So benefits are really huge, right? So considering that. And then lastly, personally, I think you should really consider, obviously vacation and time off, because that can vary too, right? But I also think you need to talk to people to see how happy they are, right? I talked about the environment, as far as, do they do team building activities? How well do they communicate there? How well are you being treated? How friendly is the staff? And you really get that insider information from talking to current CRNAs that are working there. Highly recommend that you always do that. And not just one CRNA, multiple CRNAs that work at a facility. Talk to more than one, and then compare, make sure they both are in line with, oh yeah, this is great. This is like rainbows and sunshine. And then, or you might have someone who says that, and then another person who says, oh my gosh, this isn't this, so you're like, well, why is it so different? Kind of ask. What I did is I talked to one person. What I found out at the position also that I wasn't happy in is they were recruiting, they were using their staff to recruit, and they were giving bonuses, like $1,000 bonus for you to recruit. So, I'm not saying that that's wrong. I know a lot of places do that, and I also know I was asked to work there from a friend who, of course you want your friend to work with you, because how fun is that to go to work and see your friend every day? I enjoyed. I loved seeing my girlfriend. That was amazing. But the fact that inherently they had to give these giant bonuses to have CRNAs recruit, it's was there everything said that could have been said about what was going on? I don't know. So maybe find that out. Try to find it out too. Hey, just curious, do you guys do recruiting bonuses? Because it could be another indication that maybe it's a place that has a harder time keeping staff. So just something to think about. Doesn't mean it's always true, but I want to at least put it in your brain to think about, consider. Let's talk about PTO. PTO can vary again. I've seen ranges from 4 weeks as a new grad to 6 weeks as a new grad. Obviously, the longer you work there, the more PTO you get. I would say, I've been a CRNA for 8 years, and I would have 6 weeks of vacation. But here I think by 10 years, I would have an additional week, so 7 weeks. But that being said, some places will give you 12 sick days, 7 holidays, and 5 weeks of vacation. And if you look at how that breaks down, that's 9 weeks of vacation. But, you're probably not going to be using 12 sick days. But what's nice about sick days is some places will allow you to just have this giant bank of sick days. Some places will expire sick days. Some places will let you roll over certain vacation hours. Some don't. What's nice when they do allow you to roll over is if you plan on having a baby or having a surgery, you can save some time off, so you can have more paid time off if you need it, if you know you're going to expect it. I did that when we had our first 2 babies. I would save 2 weeks of vacation, roll it over, so I'd actually have 8 weeks of vacation to take on my maternity leave plus a short-term disability, whatever measly little bit they gave you. And I think that's really unfortunate that even as a CRNA, even in medicine, being, that most places don't have a great maternity leave. They just don't. There are a few hospitals that have a fully paid maternity leave, as well as paternal paid maternity leave. That does exist. The place I'm referring to, they don't pay as high as salary goes, but that's a good perk. So go there, have your babies, and then leave for a higher salary. Just kidding. But, something to at least consider if you're planning on having 5 or 6 children. go to a place that has good maternity leave, because it is so expensive to have babies and lose out on your CRNA salary or have to burn all your vacation. And so when you come back to work, you're like, I can't miss a single day. Like, I'm gonna drive myself insane. I don't get a vacation for like think about it. If you had a baby in January and you come back in, what would that be, March? You'd have to go the rest of the year without missing a single day of work. And gosh forbid if your baby's sick, right? Then what? Then you just take an unpaid day or something. So that's definitely something to think about. Most people I knew, again, would roll over some vacation or even borrow vacation from the next year if things like that happen. But it gets incredibly hard, especially as a parent. It's really hard to work and be held to these rules when you're a working parent. Anyways, so also something to think about too is CME money and QPI. What's that? So CME, you're probably familiar with it. It's just mandatory education. You have to get CE credits to maintain your CRNA license. And I would say you can expect anywhere from $1,500 to $2,000 a year is the average. I'm sure there are places who give more than that, but I would say what I have seen the average to be is right around $2,000. QPI, that's like an incentive bonus for if you waste your narcs accurately, or just kidding. That's one of it that can go into your QPI. If you had 50 mics of fentanyl that you charted 50, but you didn't waste the other 50 and you forgot to waste it in the system, or maybe you charted 100 mics, but you only gave 75, and so you wasted 25, and they're like, well, what's going on? Like, you said you gave 100 and you wasted 25. I don't know. I mean, mistakes happen. So that went into your QPI. And then other things like joining committees and committing to a committee, attending certain amount of staff meetings, not having missed too many days of work, meaning not calling off, that kind of thing. So that's a QPI as far as your QPI bonus. And I would say that's, at least in my experience, has been right around $2,500 to $3,000 a year. And they kind of lump sum give that to you like the next fiscal year. So it'd be like you would get distributed last year's QPI in March of the next year. So it's kind of like a lump sum payment. And then take out all the taxes, and then you get what's left. So that's something to keep in mind too. Let's briefly touch on, and before I forget, if you're looking for affordable CRNA schools, I have a resource you want to grab. It's listed below in the show notes. I compiled the most affordable CRNA schools in the country. There are 50 schools that are less than $100,000 and 10 schools that are less than $50,000 or less than $60,000. So grab that guide below in case I'm assuming if you're listening to this, you're probably like, money's on your mind. So why not pick an affordable CRNA school? I'm not going to go into this topic too much, but I also want to say I have students ask me, well, if I go to this school, it's Ivy League, and pay, $200,000 for this education, will I get better, higher paid CRNA jobs? No, no. It doesn't matter how much you pay for your education. As long as you work really hard in your clinical and pass your boards, you are going to be in the same playing field as all the rest of the CRNAs who are new grads. So paying $180,000 for your education or $50,000 for your education doesn't make you any less of a CRNA when you graduate. What can make or break you is your clinical and how well you perform and how your attitude. Attitude is really anything. It's not really your skill set. It's your attitude and how you show up at clinical that really lands you good jobs after school and networking, as I already said. So grab the free resource below as far as trying to find the most affordable CRNA schools in the country. Keep in mind also that a lot of the most affordable schools, you have to be in state to get that tuition. So plan ahead and try to get a residency. I think most states require 1 or 2 years for you to live and work in that city or state prior to getting in-state tuition at that college. So if you have enough time and you can plan to work your ICU time in a state that you want to go to school that has really affordable schools to pick from, knock yourself out. I would say do it if you have the ability to do so. All right, so back to CRNA salary. So I kind of hit most of the highlights with this episode today, you guys. Again, places that have high cost of living like New York, California, of course, you're going to probably make more than $200,000 a year. I would sure hope so anyways, because they'll have a 700 square foot apartment in New York is like an obscene amount of money. So I would really sure hope those CRNAs make a lot more than $200,000 a year. So again, just know that this is going to vary based on where you live. This is just a mean, the average, and it's only based on 2,800 people who took this survey. Again, there is 50,000 CRNAs practicing CRNAs in the United States. So does it encompass everything? No. but it's definitely a good ballpark to give you an idea. Locum positions, I don't think I've gotten there yet, but locum positions, again, anywhere from $180 to $200 an hour is what you can essentially expect. And you can find a locum position that's more like a PRN. They're not common, but clearly they exist because I was able to find one. I wasn't even looking and I found one. So they are out there. Me personally, the reason why I've always kind of not done the locum thing prior is because most locum positions will make me drive too far away to my family and have to stay away from my family. And that's a no-go for me. Like, I'm not, like, I gotta be home, snuggle my kids, kiss them, tuck them in good night. Like, that's a big thing for me. Like, so this position I found is only an hour away, so I can drive an hour, like, no big deal. Like, I can put a podcast. I'll listen to my podcast. Just kidding. I won't. I don't like listening to myself talk. But that being said, I don't mind an hour drive, but any more than that, I'd have to question whether it would be worth it for me. Because I don't really want a 2-hour drive, but I want to come home at the end of the night. I would never take a locum position where I'd have to be away from my family. That's just not for me. But it works for some people, right? And obviously if I had to, if it came to where I was going to lose our house or whatever, of course I would do it. Like, if I could make more money and we had to financially, I would do it. But if I don't have to, I won't. So that's where my mind's at with that. Also, locum positions historically would make you work a certain schedule, meaning Monday through Friday, 8 hours, Monday through Thursday, 10 hours, or whatever. They would designate that they want you for a certain amount of time every week. And I don't like that because, again, I'm all about flexibility. So that's why I love my PRNs. And so I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Thank you so very much for tuning in, and I will see you next week.